Okay. Alrighty. So, question to start with. What we do to test listening and reading is the same as what we do to teach it. True or false? Yeah, and it can be interpreted as that's a matter of fact, and also as it should be and shouldn't be. What do you think? Does it make sense that they're so similar?
No.
I don't know.
It could be. I always want to know how to actually teach us, like, how to listen to something, and it doesn't seem to happen a lot in course books.
Yeah, how to listen. Exactly. If someone's trying to teach you how to swim, they can demonstrate swimming, right? But it's quite difficult for you to demonstrate listening, beyond obviously just not doing anything else. It's almost as if you forgive the slightly mad analogy, you're trying to teach them how to swim, but you're swimming inside your head, and they can't see the swimming. Do you know what I mean? And then you say, "Now you try." Anyway, okay. So first of all, where does this thing come from? This kind of true or false thing. 330 million years ago, true or false questions crawled out of the sea. Where is this kind of idea of these listening test types that we're so familiar with from? Why do we do these kind of IELTS-y things?
It's not too productive, it's just very...
Yeah, to try not to confound the result with productive skills. That's true. That's an important point. Okay, so first thing I want to look at is a model for receptive skills, and I'm sure you're broadly familiar with this sort of thing. This is from Cyril Weir and Adrian Uckhart's book, Language Test Validation. These guys do a lot of work on validating Cambridge language tests like IELTS. And they've got this model, and you've got skimming and scanning and detail and that kind of thing that you know about. And the way it's organised is down here you've got the things you can do quickly, skimming and scanning, and here are the things you have to be more careful with, detail and understanding the grammar and the vocabulary. And then here, these are the things that are aimed at quite a global, like an overall understanding of the text. In this case, everything in the text, in this case, just the main ideas, the structure, the topic of the text. And then here, these are the things which require attention at the local level. This is the model from their work on language test validation. And this obviously then helps to generate the sorts of tasks they include. They're trying to test these skills, or sometimes called strategies. What's the difference between a skill and a strategy? It's very close in the terms that it's used in this kind of work to what we've just said about swimming and swimming in your head and not being able to see it. It's very similar to that. A skill is defined as something that you don't have introspective access to, something that you can't talk about, something you don't know you're doing. Like if someone says, "How did you just stand up?" You wouldn't immediately launch into a detailed description of the procedure because you don't really think about it like that. And a strategy is the same exact thing, but just something that you know that you're doing and is potentially available to introspection or description. It doesn't have to be the case that you're thinking about it all the time while you're doing it, just that if you were asked, you could explain the steps you're going through. And I think one of the big problems with teaching reading and listening is the fact that it's so skillfully done by the people who do it and not very strategic. Like you're listening to me right now, but you're not employing any conscious strategies to follow what I'm saying. Hopefully, I'm speaking slow enough that that's not necessary. Yeah? Okay. Anyway, so we know about this. We get the idea here. Skimming, establishing topic, main ideas, text structure. This is an important point. It's selective and avoiding a focus on detail. Scanning is very selective. And here, this is for reading. It's non-linear. Scanning is non-linear in the sense you don't follow the thread of the text in reading. You just jump around. You might go forwards and backwards. Obviously, you can't do that with listening. And then here, understanding lexis and grammar. So this is the basic thing, like we heard in Andrew's talk. That's very true, I think. Everyone probably agrees with that, especially when you're doing it yourself in a foreign language. If you know the words that are being used, you've got a better chance of understanding, and that's the basic block. You don't know what someone's saying because you don't know the language that they're using. And this here is building up understanding at the vocabulary level, the grammar level, and the phrase and sentence level. And then here, understanding everything, accurate comprehension of main ideas and supporting details. This is non-selective and linear. So you follow the thread through. Now, the argument, obviously, goes that there are these separate kind of, if you like, mental modules doing these separate things, separate strategies, separate skills. Obviously, when you listen competently in a language you know well, you're not at all aware of employing these different strategies. And the model is very hypothetical. But that's the kind of model that generates the sorts of tasks that we're familiar with in our listening tests and our reading tests. Okay, then this is another model here. This is levels of processing. So here, if we start at the bottom, you process at the word level. You need access to your lexicon, to your resource, all the words that you know while you're doing that. And then coming up the complexity at the clause level, at the sentence level here, you need access to the grammar that you know. And then, very important and most interesting for me is this distinction here between sentence and proposition. When you understand and then remember what I'm saying or what Andrew said earlier, do you remember it at the level of the words you heard and the grammatical constructions that were used? Or do you remember it at the level of the propositions, the ideas? But students, I think, for no fault of their own, are often unable to make this leap. Right? And it's just a question of processing loads of language which is coming out. It's just the word language, and then the expression loads of, and with language, but not what that means so much. Let's have a look at this distinction between sentence and proposition in a little bit more detail in a second. And then finally, your knowledge of text structure, your knowledge of the world, they help you to interpret at these higher levels what you're seeing, what you're hearing. Okay, so this distinction, proposition and sentence, let's have a look at some different questions. Look at this one. Yesterday I saw a palgish flester golling begrunt the brook. And then the questions? What was the flester doing? Golling, yeah. So this is processing at the level of a sentence, or the level of vocab and grammar. And what sort of flester was he? Palgish, obviously. Yesterday I saw a palgish flester golling begrunt the brook. What's the problem described here? Yeah, does that make sense? So this is at the level of of the idea, the content, the meaning, if you like. So these sorts of questions help you to process or force you to process at the level of grammar and vocab, and these sorts of questions force you to process the level. So maybe these are better questions if you want to, if your aim is explicitly to get students to think about what they're reading in terms of the propositions and less in terms of the sentences, then these questions are better for that purpose. Okay, so next thing here, let's come back to our original question. Should it be that the test types, the tasks we use in tests, true, false, are the same as what we use to teach? I think everyone agrees that, at least to some extent, no. It should be different. What's the difference between testing and teaching in broad terms? Like there's a room with a swimming pool in it, and you have to get to the other side, and I'm going to watch you, I'm testing you, and there's a room with a swimming pool in it and a swimming teacher, and I'm going to hold your upper body up so you can practice kicking. And that's teaching, in a nutshell, if you like. So the difference is the help, the support, the guidance. No? You take away some of the difficulty of it so that they can focus on developing a small aspect, a component of the skill. Okay, so this is a famous study. You may, I don't know, it's like the thing that the word scaffolding comes from, this research, this paper. Wood and Middleton. So it's mothers helping their children build a little model, like a Lego thing. And these are the things the mothers did. General encouragement. Now you have a go. Specific instructions. Get 4 big blocks. And direct demonstration, showing the child how to place one block on another. And then I think this is nice, these bullet points, because it helps us to see why teaching people to listen and read is hard. What's the easiest to do here? Now you have a go. But difficult to give them specific instructions. What would you hypothetically say to someone specifically?
Listen for the stressed words.
Good example. Which is then a strategy. Yeah? And then if they do it and it becomes automatic, it then transfers into a skill. Okay, good. For children, there's the follow your finger thing. You sound it out. I was really bad at reading. My little brother could read before me. So I had a lot of really intensive help with my reading. Loads of people being paid and my mum and everyone trying to get me to read. So I remember loads of stuff, Fuzzbuzz books, I don't know if you know all them, but loads of stuff like that, like strategies to help develop the skill. Demonstration is the hard thing, right? You can't demonstrate listening easily. Okay, so then with more of a focus on teaching, the same author, these are kind of the processes that aid effective scaffolding in a classroom kind of context. Gaining and maintaining the learner's interest in the task. We do that before we read or listen in class normally, right? We can do that. Making the task simple. Grade the text, grade the task. We can do that. Emphasizing certain aspects that will help with the solution. This is the strategies thing. This is what you're saying. Think about stress. Look for the pronouns and draw arrows to their reference. Control the child's level of frustration. That's part of the teacher's role. But then again, you've got this sticking point. Demonstrating the task. Oh dear, sorry. I've pressed the wrong button. Excuse me while it jumps around for a second. It's a bit seasickening, this thing. Excuse me. Okay, so then back to this demonstration. Okay, so here's the problem we've got. How to demonstrate. Okay, so let's try. This is a guy called Rost talking about what comprehension means in the sense of reading and listening. What is it? What's comprehension? Okay? So can you read this and comprehend it? Yeah? And then as a task, can you talk in a 3 or 4 or whatever, 2s, 3s, 4s, and can you draw a little diagram, like the models we've seen with components and arrows and things, boxes and arrows, draw a little diagram that explains what Rost says happens when you comprehend. Draw a diagram, model Rost's comprehension for me, please. One person can draw in each group, so one pen, one piece of paper per group, if possible. Okay, let's try and do it in 2 minutes. You may not have finished, but we are pressed for time, so okay, let's try to come together. Okay, so what's the most important word, like noun, in this whole thing, or 2 or 3? What are the big ideas that we need in our model?
Comprehension. Integration.
Like comprehension, the whole model is comprehension, right? So comprehension is kind of like the heading of it. So what are the components of the model?
Integration.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's happening. We're drawing a picture of integration, aren't we? Good. Okay. So what do we draw in our picture of integration?
Satellites of things that are conveying, that can be integrated.
The hands are good. These are the yeah. I like the hands. Who was here for the mimes thing? No one probably. Anyway, yeah. So the hands. So the arrow. This could be arrows in the diagram, right? So we're going to see something like this. I don't know. Anyway, we could go on, but let's have a look. This is my go. Obviously, it's just a picture, so it can't be right or wrong. But I've got the language is coming in, and the concepts are coming in, and then they are integrated into your model, your model of what's happening. Something like that. I don't know. It's not a test. Yeah.
Oh, they're arrows.
These are little arrows. Yeah. Hello. I'm an arrow. Okay. I don't know. Okay, so let's just talk about this as reading practice for the classroom. So the things I want to emphasize about the task is that it's quite open-ended, unlike true or false. Yeah? The student, a lot comes out of the student, not just a circle. That allows you to see what they're doing. Do you know what I mean? Like you're watching them swim, or you're watching them play golf or something. Rather than just it's all happening in secret inside. The swimming is happening, but you can't see it. And then suddenly this thing comes up. Poof! True. But it doesn't really tell you anything much about... Well, it tells you, obviously, if the question's well designed, it tells you if they understand a specific point in the text, I guess. And also, it allows, very important, it allows the students to see each other's processes. Right? When you're talking to each other. We know this is a pair check. Compare with your partner, that's all, isn't it? That's all I'm saying. But instead of, I would say, try instead of lots of time on true, false, true, false, true, false, true, false, true, false, with a little pair check, instead big pair check, and then little bit of like the answer, maybe. And then also the pair check can be the whole class just talking together, and like we did, try to bring out some of the processes that people are going through, like what's the big word, what's the important word, where are you starting off, etc., etc. Okay, let's look at some more examples.
Is this only for reading?
Reading and listening.
So
Comprehension.
So people listen to a text and draw a diagram?
Yeah, sure, and then compare. And then listen again, and compare again, and so on, and so on, and so on. I just want to make this point that Rost is making, that that the difficult part is that the language in the text comes in, right? And then it's integrated into your model, but your model of the text is then part of the concepts in your memory. Does that make sense? As soon as you hear about it from the listening, you know it then. Then it's in your mind, then it's something you know about the world. Then the next bit of the listening has to be integrated with everything you knew about the world before you started listening and what you've heard so far in the listening. Does that make sense? So you're constantly converting things into propositions and then recording them in your memory and then getting a new one and then integrating it with what's gone before and everything else you know from previous experience. And I just want to try and give you a feeling for that with some of these sentences. These are called garden path sentences, or they're more or less like that. And they force you to assume one thing and then change your mind halfway through. Yeah, let's try reading them. Yeah. Yeah. So the first proposition settles in your memory, and then you think you've got it, and then when the new one comes, you have to go back and re-evaluate what you thought at the beginning, which is one of the millions of things that's happening while you read and listen all the time. Okay? Okay, so now these mad things. Do you know this phrase? Illuminated manuscripts. That's what these are. The teacher can talk, the students can talk, and that can support you while you're reading and listening. But if you're a writer, you can't speak to the people or expect them to talk in pairs. So what you can have is like this. See, there's the text, and then this is the picture. Can you see this? This guy's eating. This is gluttony. This woman is not eating. This is abstinence. Thank you. Thank you. And then obviously all these different virtues and vices help you to understand the text. These were designed like this because the population was largely illiterate at the time these works were published, or at least illiterate in the language that the text is written in. So the pictures are supporting you, scaffolding you, kind of guiding you, whatever you, helping you. Here's one that we saw just a little bit of. So you can see something's happening here, and then there's a bit of text about it. This is a story about Alexander the Great. This is him, and this is the Wheel of Fortune. Here he's rich with a crown, and here he's not got his crown on, he's poor. And this is the story about his life. This is him dead. This is Alexander the Great in a submarine. And this is a story about how fantastic he is and all the things he did. What do you think this text is about?
Weighing up the songs.
If that's a good guess.
Yeah, it was.
This gentleman is having his heart weighed. This is the Feather of Truth.
Oh, yeah.
And this is the book where either he's judged to be a just, good person, and then it's recorded in this book, or otherwise they don't weigh the same thing, and then he's a bad guy, and then he's eaten by this gentleman. That's what it says here. And obviously the pictures support you in processing that and reading that. Okay. So this is a kind of classroom attempt to do a similar kind of thing. Here, look, the text is up on the wall. There are pictures. And then the students work in groups to try to, what is called in this process, map the text. which means you give them a colour code. Yellow is for main ideas, red is for important words, and then they annotate the text according to whatever you've asked them to pick out, and they work in groups. So obviously you get that thing of they can see the process that the other students are going through. And obviously the first time you might choose to lead this from the front of the room and show them how you do it. This is a way of making your processes in reading available to the students. This is another example. It's not a very good photo. Okay, you can see here the students have mapped this text, and then here they've written their opinions about the topic. But if you have these on the wall all around the room, it's a way of trying to get this thing from just inside your head, invisible, out there and available. Does that make sense? Obviously, some students are going to be really good at this, right? Look, this is the main point, this is the main point, this is the main point. And once it's highlighted here on the wall, the students who don't yet have a well-developed strategy in that area can watch them doing it, and it's like watching someone swim. It's a demonstration. This guy, Dave Middlebrook, he has a website called the Text Mapping Project with so much information about text mapping. Photos, how-to guides, ideas for resources, lists of different ways of mapping the text, different color coding systems. It's a massive thing. Loads and loads of people collaborating. It's mainly secondary schools, primary schools in America, not TEFL schools in London, but I think it's a really interesting thing. And then similar is these guys, which I'm going to call graphic organizers. If you Google graphic organizers and then click on images, all of these things will pop up, hundreds of thousands of them.
So what do you say?
Graphic organizers. And they are ways of helping the students to structure their thoughts when they approach a reading or a listening that is in the worksheet so you can give it as homework. For example, this is for a TED talk. I don't know if any teachers here use TED as homework sometimes. Kind of homework, or before you talk about something in class, perhaps. And this is from TED. They've produced this, and it's got loads of little categories for you to make notes on while you watch the video. And this may structure the students' thoughts and help them develop those strategies, or to make those strategies more automatic, and hopefully they then start to develop into skills. This is for reading a short story. You know this kind of thing? Graded readers? You could give the graded reader to the student and this, and then they fill it in. The dramatic events, the climax, the last bit when they get married or whatever. And then this is all about the details, where it's set and stuff. And then this is the main theme and how things are resolved. And they fill that in by reading the text. And then other things like that. This is, they choose a topic. Could be like, I don't know if you're football fans. Did you watch Manchester United against Manchester City on Sunday? You know there was a fight in the tunnel. Did you read about that? Oh, yeah. Anyway, I did. And so that's the topic, or the event, the fight. And then they read about it in different texts. This is The Guardian. This is something on Facebook. This is something on another source of information about it. This is me talking about it, perhaps. And then they make notes, and they try to evaluate the differences, compare and contrast the different perspectives on the event, perhaps. And then this is I don't know if you know this KWL chart, what I know about the topic before I read, what I wonder about the topic before I read, and then I read and then what I learned. But again, compared to true-false questions, it's much more open, right? A lot thicker data comes out of that for you to diagnose what your students are good at and weak at. This is for dialogues, and then this is for, you quote people in a movie, say, and then you analyze their characters based on the quotes. Okay, there's thousands of things like this. So these are kind of suggested activities for you to try, but you can just find them online. And all these slides are online. So it's easy. You can find. I'll tell you how to find them in a second. Okay. This is a reference. Sharon Cohen is a big expert in the field of graphic organisers. If you want to read the book about it. Okay. Okay, then how are we doing? 20 minutes. Okay, good. Now, this is my idea here. This listening idea. This is a procedure for listening where the students set the agenda, and it's adapted from John Fields. Do you know that book, Listening in the Language Classroom? It's a book about listening. And I was reading it, and I came up with this idea, and I've been doing it for a couple of years, 3 years now, and I think it's helped me anyway. So we'll go through it now, but we're actually going to do it with you listening as students, if that's okay. I know it's late. Okay, I've got a text here that we're going to listen to, and it's deliberately very challenging to understand because it's really fast. Okay? I'm not suggesting that you use a ridiculously fast text with your students, obviously. Instead, this would be listening to a person buying tickets in a train station or whatever you want. Okay, so you need these. Thank you. So you need about 4 or 5 each. Can you pass them around? Take 4 or 5, 6 maybe? Okay, that's some for you. That's some for you. Oh, maybe there's not enough. Maybe 4 or 5 is a lot. Maybe 3 is enough. Maybe 3 is good. Can I have one more?
I got 3.
Thank you. There you go. Great, thanks. Okay, they're blank. You just need them blank. Is there some more? Did I not make enough? I'm really sorry. Okay, imagine you've got 4 or 5 for me. Thanks, Lizzie. Okay. Okay. So, okay, now this is what you give the students, but obviously make enough. I'm sorry. And that's what they have instead of a task. Yeah, so obviously a lot's going to have to happen as a process. Okay, so these are the first 2 questions. Is that okay? Type meaning letter, speech, dialogue. Okay, let's try. Maybe internet. Have to bear with it a little bit.
I know you're gonna dig this.
Oh yeah, perfect. Yo. Okay, yo.
Okay, this is the section. We're going to listen to 30 seconds.
Guns, we can all talk get $2. Harder to be the one who seeks knowledge. If we understood economics with no money's nothing, think nothing of it. Money is a means to get wealth. Not the wealth itself, and don't get confused. Far from broke. All that you see me do, I own, but I won't hang what I make around my neck. I know from where that the diamonds came, but I do literally own the libraries. It definitely costs more than your chain. And businesses and property, far from starving. I eat quite properly, and I don't care. Just said it for the kids. We need to know you're not broke to listen. Don't know an asset from a liability. They never been shown nor told the difference, so they don't change situation. Richest man in Britain is Asian. That's significant, not coincidence. Asian people build businesses not by flossing, going out shopping, giving up the coat.
Okay. Okay. So do you remember the questions?
What's it about?
What's it about, yeah? So with your partner, what do you think? Talk together. All right.
Financial.
Okay.
What time are you supposed to? Oh.
Okay. Overall topic, please.
Personal success. Oh, interesting. Personal success.
Good. And then if there's a board, we can write at the top money. Yeah, and personal success. And that might not come out straight away. Then what would we do? Listen again. Just stop and then just stay at that level. What's it about? 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 In this way, we are trying to demonstrate what you do first when you're listening. Does that make sense?
Again, sorry?
We're trying to demonstrate what you would ordinarily do first when you're listening to something.
Oh, right, yeah.
You would want to know what it's about first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then we can, if we're happy with that, we can move to the next level. Oh, not this. Next one. Here. Structure. How is this text organized? Is it, for example, the advantages and the disadvantages of something? Or is it, for example, a chronology? First this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. What's the structure of the text? How many topics or sections are there? Okay, now, each card you've got should represent a section of the text. So like, for example, he talks about money and then he talks about personal success. So there's 2 cards. Yeah? Okay, so next task is super simple. Is how many cards do you need to map this text? That's all. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we're going to listen again. Just pick a number, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay, for you, in your opinion, there's no right or wrong answer. How many sections are there to the piece of text that we listen to? Okay, we're going to listen again. Talk together. Try to agree. You're 4? Yeah, you're good? You think 5? Okay. 8, yeah, great. 8's fine. 8's great. How many of you guys? Okay, tell me a number. 4? 4 and 8 is the range. Any lower than 4?
No.
3? 2. 2. Chunky sections. Okay. I don't know. What do I think? I think 4. I think 4. Yeah. That's not an answer, is it? This is kind of artistic, isn't it? So even if you ask the artist, it still doesn't really count as the answer, in my opinion.
So what's your 4 then?
Oh no, that's next. Now, what are the section headings? Yeah, on each piece of paper, you write a word or a phrase which for you captures that section. What it is, what it's about. Do you just want to, is this enough? Do you understand the idea? And we'll just talk it through from now on, yeah?
I had to count by making heading sections.
Great. Yeah, so you kind of did the 2 things at the same time. Integrated the 2 stages. Very nice. Okay. So then for me, but this is going to be different for everyone. For me, the first bit is, what does he say? Oh yeah, it's very abstract and it's quite a philosophical point. So for me, that's kind of like an introduction. So that's the first bit. He says, money is not anything. It's just a way to get. What you can use money for is why it's valuable. It's not in itself. It's like saying you can't eat money, kind of thing. Point. And then he talks about himself, me, my library, my businesses. I won't wear diamonds, but I'm rich, kind of thing. I eat properly, yeah. That's like his kind of like personalizing that topic for him. That's the second section for me, in my opinion. And then he talks about like education and young people and in relation to the topic. He says kids don't know the difference between an asset and a liability. They've never been shown or taught the difference. And then the final bit is the example about, he says the richest man in Britain is Asian. And he's giving a concrete example. And obviously that implies this really complex point about the relationship between culture and immigration and money and loads of stuff. So I've got 4, that's my 4. And then that might take ages, that might take the 20 minutes to get to that point where you've got your 4 little phrases and you're happy with them. And then that's all we can do really, isn't it? With this text and these students, that's the level that we're at. And if it was a train station and a person buying a ticket, the sections would be, hello, good morning, good afternoon, da, 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 to the details, where you're going, how long it takes, what platform you have to go to, and then the money, and then the leave taking. See ya, thanks. Maybe? So it can be super, super simple.
And the sections will be different sizes as well.
Yeah, totally. And in class, you just draw the circles on the board, however many they want, and then you write whatever they suggest in them. Does that make sense? And then the next bit, is adding details. Add the specific ideas, details and examples to your topic cards. So they've got a phrase on them and then they da-da-da-da-da. Now this could often be just one topic card is interesting to the class. Like you're all interested in this richest man in Britain who's Asian idea. And then we spend a lot of time listening to that section. Maybe we listen to that 10-second section 20 times. Really try to understand what that is about. Do you know what I mean? But if that's what we can do, then let's do that. Isn't it better than listening to something for 2 minutes that you can't understand, guessing if the answers are true or false, and then moving on? Do you know what I mean? And then what comes out of it, hopefully, fingers crossed, what comes out of it is, oh, they don't know how to process something that's there, that's that feature that's stopping them. Okay, they don't know a word, that's not listening, fine, we teach them the word and we move on. But oftentimes, it's going to be something that is more listening-based, that's the obstacle to comprehension. Like, for example, they can't hear what he's saying because he's blah, blah, blah. Do you know what I mean?
The specific ideas and details, are they...
The details of the text?
I have a feeling some people are going to start to try and write down everything that he says.
No, the propositions that he expresses rather than the words he uses.
Okay.
I would say.
Right.
We're trying to clarify what he's trying to say and then try to create a little summary of what you've said. But sometimes it will be specific phrases. Like maybe richest man is obviously, initially you might think that's a word. A richest man, what's a richest man? Yeah? When you learn a foreign language, you've had that experience, right? You think you know a word, oh, I heard that word, but it's actually 3 words or something. Yeah? And then later that you find out that that's the richest man. That could be really interesting. Or something else could be interesting. It depends what comes up, doesn't it? And then, we listen again, obviously, we need to. And then here, questions. Now, at this stage, we do have questions, but I would suggest it would be good to try having the questions come from the students. Turn the card over, and the students in their group write the things they don't understand down as questions. Why does he talk about an Asian, for example? Or what did he say about diamonds? Why are diamonds important? Are the diamonds his diamonds? Whatever they want to write down. And then we can listen and check the answers.
So I'm thinking, what's repeatable in this way of working? What can you teach your students so that they can repeat it?
But yeah, okay, can I interrupt you? Because I think I want to say something to answer that. The repeatable thing is the process, the strategy.
Right.
Do this, then do this, then do this.
But doesn't it come back to this slide you're showing now, which is what are the questions in their mind and what do they have to resolve? And if they can find some strategy or method to ask the questions or to ask them in their own mind,
Yeah.
they can discover what they can comprehend and what they don't.
That's what I think, yeah.
So it really gets, the repeatable part is figuring out what questions to ask.
Yeah, sure, what types of question to ask, yeah, definitely. But also the repeatable part is figuring out what it's about and then figuring about how it's organised. Like where the information you need is likely to be in it. And then what other like basic topics, areas, how to map it, how to organise it in your head. How to integrate it into things that you already know.
It's interesting because in business, which I spend a lot of my time, they try to train people now in something that's called active listening, which is a term I'm sure we've all heard. But you'd be amazed how much teaching goes into trying to teach business people how to be active listeners. And it comes back to what are you not sure about? And instead of assuming that you know what you've heard, to train yourself to ask questions and to assume you might not be sure.
Yeah, I wanted to call this session active listening, but it's loads of businesses stuff comes up on Google.
Yeah.
And then I thought it should be called creative listening, and then that's the name of an advertising agency.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's the same, more or less.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, listen again, and then my suggestion would be tape script at this point. Or, okay, you're working with, you can do obviously this with a reading, but you just have to say 1 minute, and they go, and then you turn over the text. and do the pair check. And then turn over 1 minute if it's a reading. And then what's stopping you from saying you completely understand the text? More questions come out. Listen again, read the tape script again, and then here's the tape script. And then here's a summary of the stages that I'm talking about with you guys today. This is the staging that we've just been through. Number 1, the topic and the genre. Number 2, the structure, the count out the bits of paper. Listen again and add headings. Number 3, add detail to the cards. May need to listen more than once. Probably only some of the cards get done in detail. But that's okay, the students can just choose the bits that they're interested in and listen into that bit. Might be a bit exhausting to try and do everything. And then what questions do they have? Answer the questions, and then ideally 0 uncertainty, but maybe impractical. Please.
I was going to ask about, this sounds very much like a scientific method. You have a proposition and you falsify it and you keep just repeating the process until you distill it down to a point where you can't falsify. So going back to the gentleman.
Yeah, sounds great.
You actually know. But in this process, it seems you can go at it infinitum because nothing is either wrong or right.
Yeah, sure, that's true of listening though, isn't it?
The value of that is
Well, I think you are trying to follow a kind of loosely scientific process, but you just feel finished at some point. Like when you're listening to me, you're just like, okay, I think I understand. And that's different for everyone. And if someone asked you a really difficult question about what I've said, you might want to listen to it again before you answer. And it's determined by the individual, isn't it?
But this is interesting because you have to train students to have stamina so that they don't give up.
Manage frustration, we saw, right? Yeah, and keep interest. Yeah, just stand at the front and you know how to do it.
It's just the way I do it.
Okay, that's it. That's all. This is the video. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. that's the link. It's all on the slides.
You were going to show us a slide. What was the slide?
You know, this whole thing is on Prezi. Do you know Prezi?
No.
I haven't got a board marker. It's Prezi.
It's on the screen.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Prezi. If you Google Prezi, you come here, and then my name is Ben Feben, and all the Prezis are open. You can just look at them. Just find my ones, and then this is one of them. Ben Feben.
How do you spell your name?
F-E-B-E-N. Yeah, Foxtrot, Echo, Bravo, Echo, November. I feel like I'm reporting my car stolen. Feben. Okay? Okay, that's all. Thank you. Okay. Good.